Hey gang, welcome back to another video here at Jade's Garage. I'm going to be working on the 1968 Mustang known as Jade, and this video will be about getting it prepped and ready for epoxy. Now, in the previous video, I showed where I stripped the car down or stripped off the EDP coating off the quarter panels, tail panel, and then also the original paint that was on the rocker panels and various other locations. And I used various products. I used this bristle wheel that's made by 3M, and also this polycarbide abrasive wheel that's made by Warrior, both of which are on Amazon, on my Amazon page. But those work really well, and that took care of stripping the bulk of the car. This video is going to be more about getting it finally ready for prep for the epoxy application. Now, the roof has had epoxy applied previously. It's probably been over a year, maybe even longer, I don't know. But the roof had rust problems. If I haven't mentioned it, this car was a vinyl roof car, and we all know that with a vinyl roof from the factory, they didn't do any kind of treatment on the roof. They just put the material on and let it go out the door. So they all developed rust in various locations because of that. Now, I'm not going back with a vinyl roof on this car, and I'm just going to prep it and get it ready for paint. But I need to take care of, or needed to take care of, all the rust and pitting. So I think there's another video that is in the series, I believe, where I took 3X chemistry and I applied it to the roof to get rid of the surface rust. And I believe I also used some navel jelly. I know I used various products on that to get all the rust out. And after I did all that, I sprayed it with epoxy and let it sit. Now, I've done more work to it, and I have pits to deal with. So as you can see, there's body filler, rage on top of the roof, and I've already gone over it probably 2 or 3 times to find all the pits and get those taken care of, because it doesn't make any sense to continue with the other parts of the car unless the roof is ready as well, because I'm going to spray everything again with epoxy and get it all back to one color and ready to go. So I'll show you a little bit more of that roof, and I'm going to continue working on it. So I may do some sanding and different things and just have it on a video so you can see different sanding techniques, you know, block sanding techniques and stuff like that. And then also I'm working on the drop or kick out from the sail panel. Now, obviously I've already put filler on there before, but I have to add a little bit more, and I may do some block sanding on that, show you just various techniques that I use. And from there, I want to get it all cleaned up. Take this back glass is just sitting in here, so I'm not going to leave it there. I'm going to take it out. I'm going to put these hinges down, get them out of the way, and mask the car, and then get it ready to spray. So hopefully it all goes well, and we'll see how it goes from here. So as I'm moving forward on this and doing more body work to the roof and the sail panels and different things, I just want to show you some information and some of the process that I'm going through. If you look at the top of this roof, now this was a vinyl roof car, so of course they're all going to have some sort of rust issue. I've never seen a car with a vinyl roof that didn't have issues. But if you look closely, you can see all the stars. I'll just call them stars in the sky, because all of those are little tiny pits that were in this roof. Now I'm pretty sure I did a video on this where I treated this roof with the 3X chemical, cleaned it all up, and then I went over it again with some other materials to try to get any kind of pitting out. But hopefully all the rust is out. And I did prime theirs. I did put this in epoxy a couple years ago probably, and as I'm working this now, I can see, I've added filler, and obviously all the little, like I said, all the little pits. So I've sanded this. I've applied filler twice in different locations. I didn't do it all at one time. I did like a section here and whatever, various places, and then I applied a second layer in other locations, so you can see a difference in color. Maybe you see a difference in color between, there you go, right here and that section out there. A little bit of a difference. But I'm at a point now where I'm finding the remaining pits. And you know, this was the worst part on the roof right here. And there's still a low spot right there and a little bit of a low spot there. But if you can see, hopefully you can see, I have taken a lead pencil, technically graphite, but a pencil, and I've circled all of those areas so that I know where to come in with the body filler and address those. So there's a whole bunch of those circles in various locations, and some are on the, you know, covering over the paint a little bit, but that's because, you know, a big area. And there was another area, I think it's on the other side, that has a low spot. And you know, the thing had dents and stuff in the roof too. So if you look up here, here's some shiny metal. This may have been hit with something right here at some point in its life and created a little shallow spot. And I've taken a hammer and body hammer and tapped on this high spot a little bit. I may have to add some more filler just to get a better transition, but I can feel it with my hand that this is, you know, still kind of high out here. And you know, there's a couple other areas, you can see it a little bit shiny there, but there's a section right here where I've had filler on, and you can almost see an edge to this filler, and that's because there's a low spot right there. And of course I've circled that, put an arrow. But that's where I'm at with this phase of it. I want to try to get all of this stuff taken care of before I put the next layer, because I'm going to put another layer of epoxy on top of all of this, just because I'm doing the whole car at this point. I want it all in one color before I start adding high build primer. So just to give you some idea what's going on, but it's getting much, much better. One more thing, you know, on these sides right here, I've also got some circles where I've sanded it down. Still has a bit of an edge up here, but there's high metal, so I can't keep sanding. I've got to stop and take this up a little bit higher with the filler. But there's a little low spot right there, a little bit right there. I can barely feel one right there with my finger, and then you can see some texture right here. So that's going to need some more filler as well. I've been sanding this basically with the DuraBlock, the round DuraBlock, and it gets in there pretty good. You know, it does the radius pretty good. But once I get to a certain point, I transition over and I'll use the paper and my fingers, or I'll use the edge of my hand and work that into that radius, because it's, you know, my hand would be soft enough that it's going to allow it to kind of conform to the shape. So I know people have always wanted to see some sanding techniques on that, and I know I didn't film it, but I may film some of it whenever I sand this again. But other than that, in the corner down here, I've actually welded this quarter to the sail panel, so this is a solid piece, and that's gonna, you know, keep that together. Normally it would be like a lead plug right here, and nothing wrong with that. I've actually used stranded fiberglass before and put it in there to kind of fill that, but today, or on this car, I decided I'm just going to weld that up and let it go. So there's still going to need to be some filler on top of this as well. So as I've shown on other videos, I do block sanding, and I'm going to show you some of that on this roof because it's a nice open space and I can show you some of the technique. And to do that, I'm going to have to wear a dust mask, obviously. So I'm not going to be able to, you know, talk much, but the idea is you do a, you know, crisscross type of pattern as you're sanding. And in this case, I'm using 100 grit 3M paper and a DuraBlock. So I'll get this set up and I'll start block sanding. Now I want to point out, I'm not pushing real hard on this. I'm letting the block do the work, because if you push hard, you could deflect the metal and cause more problems. So let the block do the work. I'm going to try to zoom in and point out something here. If I can get it to do what I want. When I'm doing these techniques of crisscross and block sanding, I'm looking for something like this right here. This is just starting to show the color coming back through, and that's fine. I don't want to keep going and going and going until I'm hitting bare metal, because that defeats the purpose. Here you can see there's a line. Hopefully you can see that. See if I can adjust the camera a little bit. But here you can see there's kind of a line, right? So I want to make that line fade into the black. I want to make it a, you know, kind of like a shadow looking effect here. Let me do a little bit on that. So if you look close, you'll see just a start of bare metal, but this is feathered into that edge, and that's fine. So nice. Now it's got a nice smooth transition all the way across. Still a little bit right here. That's better. Now another thing you could do, as I've done previously, is take a DA and knock down just the high part of the filler and let the DA do some of the work for you. was actually a dent right here. So I can still see it's a little low. I know you can't really see it on the camera. And I'm going to try to block that down a little bit, and I might have to add a little more filler right there. Now maybe you can see a little bit how this has a little low area right here on the edge, and then it's shadowed up here on top. There's still a little low spot right there, so I'm going to have to add a little bit of filler to that. Now, it's points like this where you can't just dig in real hard. You have to rotate your wrist and let the block flow with the shape of the car so that it doesn't create a deep spot or a low spot on the filler. You can also use your hands, but fold the paper over, and when you're trying to do some sanding with your hand, don't spread your fingers out and do this. You want to keep your fingers together and work them as a block, as if they're kind of like a block shape, and let them roll across the surface. In this case, I'm letting my palm conform to the shape. And the reason I was saying about your fingers is because you can create grooves where your fingers make, pressure. Alright, so the roof has all been filled and sanded, and I think I showed you enough details on that process that I can move on to the sail panels. Now, I think I showed this, I don't know if I did for sure, but in this corner right here, there's normally, lead filling up this little radius. And what I've done, and I know I have filler on top of it, I think I showed it, but I actually just welded this and then shaped it using a file, trying to get a nice curve. And of course I had to, add filler on top to make it transition. So just to keep that in mind, whenever you get to this point here, this is always a struggle. Now, you don't have to weld it. You could use, I've used stranded fiberglass before and, packed it in there and then overlapped it with rage or, filler. So in this case, I welded it, so it's a little more solid. And as you can see, I did sand on this before, but I've had to come back and add more filler in various locations to try to get it, built up so that I can block sand it down. Now, I have a mask halfway hanging off of me, so what I'm trying to do here is show you some different things. I'll be using this Durablock. This is about maybe just over an inch. And this has been very handy. This gets down in that radius pretty nice. It's also a little bit flexible, and you can work it onto this part of the panel because this isn't flat. This has a subtle curve to it. Very subtle, but you can also use it on that. And then I may use a nice thick paint stick to get in behind the rain gutter, you know, so I can get that shaped in. And of course the paint stick will also bow just a little bit, you know, if you want to use it on this surface as well. And of course the big thick Durablock that I use frequently. Now, I may not be able to use it much here because it's not a big surface. So I could probably get started with this and then work my way down to the other one. So I'm going to put my mask on and just start sanding. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. I'm not just moving, I'm also rotating the block with my fingers as I go through. Helps put a little more material of the sandpaper into contact with the body filler. And see, you can see that right there, it's starting to show metal. So I kind of have to stop. I can't keep digging on this, but I can work these other areas, and I may have to add some more filler, you know, to have enough material to work my way down, because again, once you see metal, you're not doing yourself any favors by still sanding on it. Now you can see also, I'm using the fat part of my hand as a guide as well, because it'll conform. I think I've said this before, it'll conform into that shape. I'm not sure how much you can see because the color is not dramatically different between the high and low spots, but it's low in this area right here, and it's pretty good at the bottom. There's a couple little sections that are going to need filler. Low spot here, and then back here is some pitting. So I'm going to have to fill in these little pinholes. I know it's hard to see, sorry. I don't know how else to do this. But there's some pinholes right here. So I'll fill those in and just go over it. It takes time. You're not going to get it all in just one shot of body filler. You have to build it up, figure out what's low, keep moving on, and get it from there. So I'll mix up some filler and get it on the car and just put it in these locations again. But it's coming along nicely. You can probably see I've used this sheet twice. I used it once for the upper half of the paper, and then I'm using the bottom half. So, if you mix up a little bit at a time, that's how you can do it. But usually I use a full sheet. I don't play around, but in this case I had some room left on the sheet, so I went for it. Nice consistent color, and then I'm just going to apply. Probably mixed up more than I need, actually. Okay, so as you've seen from the time-lapse segments that I have running, I've blown this out many times. I've sanded various areas. I've blown it out again and again and again and again. You need to do that. You know that, because you're going to end up with dust and debris and stuff that can get into your primers and paint. So it's so important to blow out all the junk that's in here. And typically, if I was going to be applying a base color, I would wet down the floor. I would take a broom and knock down everything off the walls. You know, just try to get it as clean as possible in here. But I'm done with that phase. At least I think I'm done blowing it out and trying to clean stuff up. Now I still have to wipe the car down. That'll come later. What I want to do now is mask everything off that I don't want epoxy to be on. So as you can see, the trunk has a bunch of junk in it. A bunch of pieces and parts and miscellaneous whatever. So the plan is to take masking tape, and from the back side I'm going to tape off all of the holes on the taillight, on the extension, the taillight, the bumper mounts. All that stuff is going to get a tape on the back side so that no paint will blow into the trunk area, and that will also stop stuff from coming out of the trunk area. Along with that, I'm going to mask off this whole area right here. I'm going to mask off the windows. You know, the front windshield, or the windshield, still has paper on it from the last time that I sprayed epoxy. No sense in taking it off. I'll just leave it on there. And then I will mask off the back window opening, and I will also mask off the door openings on the side, because I don't want stuff blowing around and getting all over the place. But that's going to be the bulk of what I'm doing. Okay. Now, I will also put some paper around the brake drums to try to keep anything from blowing out of there. And I don't know that I'll backmask the wheel openings or not. I haven't decided yet. But typically, if I was doing a base coat or clear, of course, I would backmask the wheel openings or the wheel houses, the wheel wells, so that it keeps junk from, you know, flying around and getting into the finish. But at this point, I'm just trying to get epoxy on the car, and I haven't decided yet, but I may put some high build primer on later, or, you know, within a short period of time while I'm at this point, because why not? You know, get it moving and get it ready to go. So I'm going to set up the camera and with the time lapse set up, so that I'm not sitting here with this camera running. You know, that other camera does a good job of making things move along and progress faster. And I also want to show you another thing that I'm going to use. And if there's any specific detail, I will try to set the camera up so that I can show you some stuff. But, you know, as I said, I'm going to backmask this stuff and move on from there. I will be using we call it a paper machine or a masking machine. And basically it's just a roll of paper that's on this red card. I'm going to pull it over and show it to you in just a minute. I'm going to reset the camera. And that is something it gets used frequently in a body shop. It's very handy, even for the home builder. You know, if you're doing projects, you can use one of those paper machines, and that'll help you out. Keeping paper ready and tape ready so that you can mask your car as well. Otherwise, that's where it's at. So I'm going to show you that, and then set up the other camera and do kind of a time-lapse thing to show the masking sequence. Now this is what I would call a paper machine or masking. It goes by masking machine here at the bottom. So it's an 18-inch masking machine. And basically you get a big roll of paper from Paint Supply, and you put a roll of tape on the side. It mounts on this wheel right here. The tape comes up to the back side of the paper, and you attach it to the paper, and then the paper comes down. There's a little spring that holds the paper in place. You pull off what you need, and then you come up at an angle, and now you have pre-taped paper. So if you haven't seen one of these, they're very handy. And as an example, let's say I'll come over and show you this door, because what I will do with the door is backmask it. And what I mean by that
is I will mask from the back side of the door like this, so that the paper kind of hangs down away from it. So when I paint I can paint the edge, and also I can pull the paper back just a little bit. Even if you move the paper, the tape line, and they have this edge of the tape here. If you move it inboard, you'll let the paper hang down and it won't make the tape touch the edge. So, you know, if I set it in deeper, I'm just going to over exaggerate here. If I set it in much deeper on the internal part of the door, now it'll hang down and leave a gap underneath here. Hopefully you can see that okay. Sorry, change that angle just a little bit. But it'll leave it hang down a little bit away from the door itself. So you can spray the back edge a little bit. At this point, this door, I'm just worried about this surface, the top surface, and coming around the edges a little bit. So I will do something very similar to this, have the paper draped down and hang it away, and that way when I spray it, it doesn't go all over the inside part of the door. But just some information for you. I want to show you this area right here. Now, the back quarter windows are still in the car, so I took paper and I went down around the window, reached from inside the car and pulled it around. So hopefully I've got enough covering the paper or covering the window to try to protect it from getting any kind of paint on it. But this opening right here, I took a piece of the 1.5" tape and put it on one side, and then fed the other piece in on the other side, and then, you know, connected them to each other. And the idea is that I can add more tape to complete, you know, fill in the gap. And it just takes time. Little things like this take time. And it doesn't necessarily have to be perfect in this case, because as I spray, I'm going to use caution as to how much pressure I put in here and the angle and that sort of thing to try to keep it from, you know, trying to blow past it. Otherwise, I've got to get some paint. I want to try to get some paint on the back side of this edge up here. You know, on the back side of this edge up here, because this is welded in. So I will get some, you know, epoxy in here, but it may be tricky. You know, if I've got this all papered off, I may have to do that later, because with the paper here, it's going to be tough. I can't push the gun in and break the paper. I've got to kind of, you know, experiment. So that may come afterwards. I'm just letting you know you need to get some, you know, material on this as well. And then, you know, you've got the striker plate mount down low, and you know, you can put some tape in there to try to protect those threads. That's a good idea, but it's not that critical. You know, you can run a tap back through them to make sure they're clean. So I may just leave these alone and just put some tape on the back side, you know, come in from the back of the quarter here, or the opening, and try to get some tape on the back side of the holes, just so it doesn't blow, you know, in there, and try to get it on the glass. Otherwise, you know, this is the more critical area. And then I will do the same where the mount point is for, let's see if I can get the angle right here, hopefully. I'll try to get some tape up inside where the dimmer or the interior light switch goes, so again, it doesn't blow in and get all over the inside. Other than that, maybe around the bolt holes. You could try to come up behind in through the dash. I know you can get to the bottom one pretty easily and put some tape back there if you want. And then up top, it's a little trickier to get your hand in, but you can do it. So consider those areas too. At the shop, we used to use, for holes like those, which would be a mount point, little rubber or silicone pieces. They were like a little cone, and you could just twist them in, and they would protect the threads. When it's all done, you could just pull them back out, and it would keep them clean. So I don't have any of those, but I'm not sure where to even get them anymore. But that was really handy just to protect the threads. So I'm going to work on masking off this door opening, and we'll see how that goes. Now, I know it's hard to tell, but I'm putting the tape on the back side so that I can get all of this area here that I've cleaned off painted. Just take a paint stick, reach on the back, make sure that is all compressed down. You got to be creative. I'll finish it off and then I'll show you what it looks like afterwards. So I have most of it masked off. Like I said, around the taillight openings. Oh, I still got to put some tape in there. Yep. I'll have to come in from behind in the hole and mask that off. And then the door openings, well, there's just some paper covering the drums and wheel lugs. You got to get creative when you mask off door openings. But again, I'm going to get into painting the back side of that jamb and the front side here. Top, I'm not so worried about. I'm going to put a little more tape on that. And then the windshield, like I said, it already had paper on it. Now the other thing that I'm going to do is use some plastic, and I'll mask off the cowl, and I'll come around this corner and come down here inside the toe kick area and cover up the engine bay and all that stuff. Other than that, I still have to back mask, as I was saying, the door, and that's all I really need to do to it. I will say I have to mask off the vent window, and then there's still some paint here on this edge. I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'll mask the window. If I get, put epoxy on top of that paint, it's not a big deal. I just want to protect the metal right now. I still have to pull the seal out, and I don't want to take this door apart. I've already taken the inside out of the driver's door, and I usually like to leave one of them together so that I can look at it when I'm trying to put it back together. And so at this point, that's what I will do, is leave this door assembled but tape it off. And as I was saying, the driver's side all masked up. And same thing, you know, paper. I'll probably retape some of that down, but there's still a couple little places where I'll have to touch it up, make sure it's at least got some tape holding it together. Otherwise, I think it's looking pretty good. It's been a long day, so I'll come back out tomorrow and finish prepping it, and then get the at the least get epoxy on, and then see how it looks from there.
Alright, so I've been prepping the car, I've got it taped, and I've blown it off several times as I've shown, but I need to wipe it down. Now in the past I have used Windex, and I've had people that didn't think that was a good idea, but I also have another product, and this is Shopline JX101 Wax and Grease Remover. So this will also work as a cleaner to getting the body all clean and ready to go. So what I've done is I've transferred this into this bottle right here, and of course it's labeled that way. And basically I will spray down the car, wipe it down with paper towels, and then blow everything off again with the air hose, and then I'll follow up prior to spraying with a tack cloth, you know, to get any kind of dust off of the car. So that's the next step. Oh, and I should point out, when you put this on and you spray this on and wipe it off, take an air hose and blow all the little cracks and crevices and grooves and everything. Make sure it's completely dry. You do not want any moisture trapped anywhere, so just take note of that. Alright, the plan is to spray the car with DTM epoxy primer from Summit Racing. This mixes 1-to-1 ratio, and it says specifically on the can that you need to put on 1 to 2 medium wet coats, and you should let it dry at least 30 minutes between coats. So I will be mixing that up and putting it into the PPS cups that I use from 3M. Now I did note that in the previous video that I did where I showed the Black Widow HVLP gun, that the fittings now are different. So apparently 3M had lost their copyrights and had to redesign the whole system. So I'm using the old system for HVLP or for their PPS cups. So just keep that in mind. Now my understanding is at the paint store that there are knockoffs of this product. So just, you know, for some information for you. So the gun is set up, it's got a little water separator on it, a regulator, and this one is for primer, and it's got a 1.7 tip on it. From what I've read, you can go up to a 1.8 tip for the epoxy primer. Now, this gun also, again, from Harbor Freight, HVLP, ideal primer and base coat spray gun. I have both of their guns. So this one is for primer and base, and the other one is for top coats. So I'm going to set the gun aside, and I'm going to mix this stuff up. Now, the plan is to mix up 2 containers, because I don't know exactly how much I'm going to go through, and I don't want to be halfway through and have to start over. So this container it holds 20, 21 ounces, something like that, but the ratio is 1-to-1. So I'm going to mix this one almost to full, and then the second cup I'll probably do about half or so, maybe a little bit more. I haven't decided yet, but when I get to that point, you'll know too. Now, the way this works, this container, the liner that is used, you know, by 3M, goes into the cup. Always make sure you have a liner. Then later on, it'll get the top, and on top of that, we'll get a collar that holds this all together. So basically, the screen is inside the PPS cup. So if you're spraying primers and stuff, that works really well. But if you're spraying like a metal flake, you can peel out this liner. It's got a little tab right here that you can pull it so you don't restrict the flow of your metal flake. So just keep that in mind as well. Really handy. And from this point, I'm going to put on my respirator because I don't want to breathe this stuff, and just start mixing it up.
so that's going to be the end of this video. I don't know how long it's going to be, but I think it's going to be one of my longer videos. You'll find out, just as I find out once I do all the editing. But I know I filmed a bunch of stuff, and I'm trying to make sure I share as much information as I can. And I want to tell you, I'm very, very excited. You know, I've been waiting a long time to do something to Jade and get it in epoxy. And this looks and feels fantastic. It laid out super nice, and I'm just very excited. Now, there's still some things that need to happen. There's seam seal that needs to be, you know, put on, and there's going to be a little bit of filler that's going to have to be added later, but it doesn't matter. I'm just really excited to have it at this point. However, I may take advantage of this opportunity because there's a window of about 4 days where I can top coat this epoxy and not have to do anything. You know, so you may want to scuff it. I'm just saying I don't need to based on what it says on the can. I have a 4-day window. So I may just go ahead and spray this up with 2K high build primer and let that sit. That can just dry for, you know, weeks and weeks and shrink and whatever and be fine. So I may take advantage of that. But I'm just excited to have this at this point right now. So anyway, I wanted to try to get this video out earlier in the week, but as I kept taking care of things and kept finding little details that I had to take care of, it slowed me down, and you know, that's the way it is. So this video, hopefully it'll be out, well, if I get it out, it'll be out tonight, which is Saturday, and if not, it'll have to be Sunday, but the goal is to get it out tonight. So if you're watching this, I'm probably going to spend, or probably have spent 3 or 4 hours trying to edit this to get it out. But anyway, yeah. So I don't have a, well, I actually do. There's a viewer's project that is an update from Wally with the 68 convertible. I have not edited that and got it ready yet, but there will be a video from Wally and talking about his car. So look forward to that. If I can get it out, it'll be, if I can, I'll try to get it out on Sunday. And other than that, I think there's a couple other people that are lined up that want to do viewers project videos, and they've been contacting me, and we're trying to get this, you know, get it worked out. So we'll see how that goes. Otherwise, channel's doing good. I'm getting very close to hitting 40,000 subscribers, which is exciting. Unfortunately, you know, the way everything's going on in the world, revenue is down with not just my channel, but all channels. So it is what it is. I'm still going to keep making videos and hope for the best. And if you haven't already, if you're interested, you know, I post links to Amazon. So if you want to order some products or stuff like that, you can go through the Amazon page. And if you buy something, even if it's not on my page list, you know, I have a bunch of stuff listed. Even if it's not on there, I still get a little percentage of that. So I appreciate that support if you want to do that. And also there'll be a link on the banner for my channel. On the lower right hand side, there's a link that will take you to Amazon and Instagram and that sort of thing. So anyway, I'm excited. So that's going to be it. Hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. For those of you that have been along all this time, I thank you and appreciate your help and support, and you know, for you being here. So that's been very awesome. So again, channel's growing, and it's all thanks to viewers like you. So once again, thank you for watching, and until next time, take care of yourselves. See ya. All right, I'm still sucking up some fumes in here, and it's starting to be loopy. Just kidding. No. All right, I'm getting close to being ready. Hold on. All right, I'm pretty close to having spray on the car, or having, no, Okay, I'm using PPS gun. I might just have to take advantage of it. Yeah, I know. 2 different treads. Ha!